Today, let's cover how to do linear regression using MS Excel. So, uh, I came across a case a few years back. So this was regarding Whirlpool. So Whirlpool, as you know, they make the electrical home appliances, and refrigerators is one of the appliances that they make. And you might also be familiar with the fact that compressor is a very important part of the refrigerator. Okay, so when making the refrigerator, Whirlpool buys compressors from some other vendor or some other company. Okay, and when doing this purchase of the compressor, Whirlpool needs to have something called as a benchmark price to negotiate with suppliers. So if you remember, we talked about a similar case. In fact, two similar cases involving negotiation. During my very first session, I talked about a case with Caterpillar where they were procuring spare parts from suppliers, and they needed to know the price of the spare part beforehand so that they can negotiate the price of the spare part with the supplier. And similarly, we talked about a case with Adani Wilmar where they were also procuring transportation services from outside vendors, and to transport a given quantity of goods from point A to point B, they needed to know the cost per kg per kilometer beforehand, so that they can use that price to or that cost to negotiate with their vendors. So here also it's the same thing. Whirlpool needs to buy compressors from its vendors, and if it knows the price beforehand, then it can negotiate with its vendors. So given that we are facing this situation, what do we know, or what data do we have? So we have the purchase details, that is the order quantity, the price per unit, and then we know that there are three vendors from which this compressor can be procured. So one vendor is in Europe, one is in North America, the other vendor is in Latin America. Latin America is usually you have those countries like Panama, Colombia, some countries in South America. So that is what typically referred to as Latin America. There are two types of compressors. So one is a scroll compressor and a reciprocating compressor. And then you have some technical specifications: capacity, weight, energy efficiency. You have data like this. So how do we do this? So how do we estimate the price for the compressor? Use this method called as linear regression, and we build this linear regression model using the data that we have. So what is this linear regression? We will take a very, very simple example. Let's say you have two parameters. So one is rainfall in centimeter, and the other is number of umbrellas sold. Okay, so this rainfall in centimeter you plot along the x-axis. The number of umbrellas sold you plot along the y-axis. So let's say this is 100 centimeter, and let's say this is 500 umbrellas. So like that you will have your data table, right? So when the rainfall recorded was 100 centimeter, then 500 umbrellas were sold. So similarly, let's say this is something more than that. Let's say this is 200 centimeter, and maybe this is something like 700 umbrellas. So you will have your typical data table, and you just take that data table and make this scatter plot. Okay, and once you do that scatter plot, you will get all these points that you see here. Okay, based on the x and y coordinates. And then what you do is you draw a line which is called as the line of best fit, or you also call it as the regression line or the line of best fit. And this line has an equation that is represented in this way: y is equal to mx plus c. So this equation of a straight line in the slope point form, this is what it is called. And you might have come across this equation in your analytical geometry chapter while you were at school. So if I were to explain the parameters of this line, then you have the y variable, which is called as the dependent or the target variable. So for example, here in this case, what is plotted along the y-axis? We plot the number of umbrellas sold. So let's say I want to predict the number of umbrellas sold given that I have certain rainfall in centimeter. So this number of umbrellas becomes the target variable or the dependent variable. So why do we call it as dependent? Because this number of umbrellas depends on the rainfall in centimeter. So so we call it as the dependent variable, and so that is y, and x is the independent variable or the predictor variable. So why do we call it as independent? Because rainfall in this context is not dependent on any other factor, so we call this an independent variable. The other name for x is predictor variable, because rainfall is used to predict the value of the number of umbrella sold. So this is called as a predictor variable, and this predictor predicts the target, which is the number of umbrellas sold. So that is the y and x values. And then you have the m, is the slope of the of this line that we have here. So m, if you remember again, we typically calculate m as dy by dx. So what is the change in the value of y for a unit change in the value of x? So if x increases by 1 unit, by how much does y increase or decrease? So if your line is like this, right? If it is like a if it is sloped in this format, then it has a positive slope. So dy by dx will be positive. Or if it is sloped in this form, so for example, let's say you just make a mirror image of this line, it will be like this. Okay, so that will have a negative slope, because for every increase in x, the y value will decrease. So the slope could be either positive or negative. In this case, it is positive. So why is it positive? Because we are saying if the rainfall increases, then people buy more umbrellas, so the number of umbrellas sold will also increase. So in this scenario, it is a positive slope. And c is nothing but the y-intercept. So y-intercept is what you get when you substitute x is equal to 0 in that equation. So you have this equation y is equal to mx plus c, and if you substitute x is equal to 0, then y becomes c. So that is nothing but, if you see here, when the value of x is equal to 0, you just sort of extend this line up until here. So this point, right, where my mouse is pointing right now, at that point x is equal to 0, but still there is some value of y. So that is what we call as the y-intercept. Okay, so that is represented by the letter c. And now the thing to note here is I have just drawn one sample line. Okay, but you might have the question of how did we arrive at this line? Okay, so how did we get to this line? Because typically in this situation, you can draw many more lines like this. So for example, let me just, so let's say I draw something like this. So this could be one possible line, and this could be one possible line. So like this, there could be many other lines possible, but we choose only that line which we call as the line of best fit, which is, let's say, this line, what I have in black and which is a bit bold here. So let us assume that this is the line of best fit. Okay, so how do we get to that line? So you have this. Sorry.
Just we will take the distance of the point from the line. So
exactly.
If you take this best line, that will be the minimum one. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That is how we do it. So to be more precise, what we do is, so we have all these individual points, right? So from each of these points, we calculate the distance between this point and this line. So, and then we square that distance. So let's say you calculate the distance of this point from this line, and you square that distance, that will be something like S1. Okay, then you calculate the distance between this point and this line. You square that distance, that will become S2. So similarly for this point, it will be S3. Here it will be S4, S5, S6, S7, like that. Okay, and you sum up these squares. So that's what we say here, sum of squares. So you sum all those square values like S1 plus S2 plus S3 up to S7. So that is for this line. So likewise, I told you that there could be many other possible lines, and for each of those lines, you take that sum of the square values, and you identify that particular line for which this sum of squares is minimum. Okay, and that line for which the sum of squares is minimum is called as the line of best fit, or the regression line. Okay, so the other name for this method is called as ordinary least squares method. Okay, so that is one other name. So they typically tell that so do an ordinary least squares regression, or OLS regression. So that is one more name for this method. If you want more details on this theory, you can just look at this video on YouTube. So that sort of explains the statistics behind how do you calculate the slope. So for everything, there's a formula. For calculating the slope, there's a formula. For calculating the y-intercept, there's a formula. So if you want to know the statistical theory behind it, you can look at this video. But what I will cover right now is how to perform this regression using Microsoft Excel. Any questions here until now?
No, all good from my side.
Okay, let me go to Excel. So this is the data that we have. So I told you, right? So we have the price per unit. We have the type of the compressor, that is scroll or reciprocating. Then we have the region, whether it is purchased from North America, Europe, or Latin America. We have the capacity. So BTU is nothing but British thermal units per hour. So that is the capacity unit in which the capacity of the compressor is measured. You have the weight of the compressor. You have something called as EER, which is the energy efficiency rating. And then you have the unit volume. So in one particular order, how many units were purchased? So for example, each line is one particular order, and this order has this part number, this compressor number 1101574, and in this order 81,000 units were purchased of this part. So that's what the unit volume means. So given that this is the data that we have, there are some minor adjustments that we need to do to this data. Okay, so this method, this linear regression or the ordinary least squares method, is capable only of taking in numerical inputs. Okay, but if you see the data that we have here, we have some text variables as well. So we have the type of the compressor, which is scroll or reciprocating. So this is not a number. Similarly, we have the region of purchase, North America, Europe, or Latin America. This is also a word, and this is not a number as well. So we need to figure out a way to convert this word-based or categorical variables into a numerical variables. Okay, so for that, what we do is you just see the highlighted columns here. So basically, I've created 3 extra columns, and one column I'm labeling it as scroll. Okay, so what this means is, you see the okay, basically I'll just tell you how I got this. So I'll just go back here. So let's say I create a new column. What I'm doing is I'm just using a simple if condition. So if the value of this C column, or if the value of the type of the compressor is equal to scroll, then I will say 1. Otherwise it will be 0. Okay, and I'll just extend this formula up to the end. So you can see that here we have a scroll compressor. So this column takes a value of 1. Here we have reciprocating compressor, it takes a value of 0. Similarly, I'll have what? So this is the column which I'm labeling it as scroll over here in the adjusted data. That is this column F. And then similarly, we have one column for North America. So what does that mean? So I'll have a similar formula. So I'll just say if the value in this column D, is equal to North America, then I will put this as 1. Otherwise, I will put this as 0. I'll just extend it up to the end. So this is the column. This J column is what I call as the North America column, which I have given here. And then there is one more column for Latin America, which is the same thing. So basically here we have given North America, right? So instead of North America, if you just give Latin America, so that will give you your next column, this Latin America. Okay. Now, one important thing to remember here is you have 2 types of compressors. So one is a scroll compressor and a reciprocating compressor, right? But when you create your binary variable, you create only one binary variable. So you just create one column for scroll, and if the value is scroll over here, then it will take 1, otherwise it will take 0. So you just create that one column. So it's not like you create one column for scroll and then you create one more column for reciprocating. So you don't do that, because if you do that, then it induces something called as a multi-collinearity. So that So ultimately, at the end, what it will do is it will just skyrocket your accuracy value to something which is very extreme. So it might give you something like a 99% accuracy, something like that. So in order to avoid that multi-collinearity situation, you just create one dummy variable column. So this 10 or the binary variable that we create is also called as a dummy variable. And take care that if you have the number of columns that you should create should be equal to the total number of values in this column minus 1. So if you have two values here, reciprocating and scroll, you create one column. Similarly, if you have three values here, Europe, North America, and Latin America, you create two columns. So one for North America, one for Latin America. That is what we have done here. Okay. So if you create one more additional column for Europe, then it will become a multi-collinearity situation. And so they refer to it as a dummy variable trap. Okay. So always remember that the number of binary variable columns or the dummy variable columns should be the number of values in that particular column minus 1. Okay, so that is what we have in the adjusted data. We have these three extra binary columns, and we also have the price per unit. Now all that you see here from just forget column A because this is just the part number, from column B to column H. So these will be the X variables or the predictor variables or the independent variables. So why do we call them as predictor variables? Because all these parameters, so capacity, weight, energy efficiency, volume, type, and all these things. So these variables help us predict the price per unit, and this price per unit is the target variable. Okay. Any questions here until now? Okay. So let me tell you how to do this linear regression. So same thing, you have to install that data analysis tool pack, and you just click on data, and once you have installed that tool pack, you will have this data analysis option over here. You just click that and just select regression. Yeah, you have regression over here. Click regression, click OK, and you have certain input parameters. So first one it's asking for is input y range. So y is the dependent variable or the target variable. So just click this arrow icon over here, and price per unit is our target variable. So that will be considered as the y. So I'm just selecting that cell range of I1 to I46, which is like my entire data frame. And then you have the input x range. X is the set of predictor variables or the independent variables. So I'll just click on this arrow mark over here, and the column B to the column H are the predictor variables. So we'll just specify this range for X, and then you have a checkbox that says labels. Okay, so we have selected from the first row, right? We have selected from I1, and for the X range we have selected from B1. But the first row contains the column headers. So the column headers, the other name for column headers is labels. So since we have included the labels in our data range selection, we will just give a tick mark in this box, labels. Okay. And confidence level 95%. So if you remember, a couple of weeks back, we talked about hypothesis testing, and we talked about this confidence level, significance level, alpha. And we also said that typically the alpha or the significance level is taken as 5%. Right, so that is the same parameter over here. So confidence level is 1 minus that alpha, so that is the 95%. And then you can choose the output options, output range. If you want to have the results of the linear regression in the same sheet, you can just click over here and select a range, or if you want it in the new worksheet, you can do that too. So let's say I want this output in a new worksheet. I'll just click here, I'll just click OK. And this is how the results look like. Okay, now let me go to another version of the same results. I've done some markings over there. So this is what the regression output looks like. Okay. Now, though the output looks a bit overwhelming, there are only certain parameters that you need to take note of. Okay, so whatever is important or whatever we look for after we do the linear regression, that is what I have highlighted over here. So there is something called as the adjusted R square, which I would say is the measure of an explanation of the regression model that you have constructed. So here you can see that the adjusted R square value is 0.58. Okay. So what is this 0.58? You can also read it as 58%. Okay. So what does this 58% mean? It means percentage of variation explained by only the independent variables that actually affect the dependent variable. Okay. So basically, what are we saying here? So we have a set of independent variables like capacity, weight, energy efficiency, unit volume, and all those things, right? So all these variables from column B to column H explain 58% of the variation in the price. Okay. So if these explain 58%, what about the remaining 42%? So there might be some other variables. So for example, let's say material of the compressor or dimensions of the compressor. So for example, let's say it might be the length, breadth, or weight, or the diameter of the compressor. So those parameters we don't have here. So those unknown parameters could possibly account for the remaining 42% of the variation in the price. But whatever we have here from column B to column H account for 58% of the variation in the price per unit of the compressor. You can see that there are two values here actually. So one is called as multiple R, and one is called as R square. Now the multiple R, the meaning for this is nothing but the correlation between the actual and the predicted values. So this is like we are basically building this linear regression out of an equation of a straight line, right? And how does that equation come? This comes out of a scatter plot. So for every point that you plot here, for every XY combination, you have something called as correlation coefficient. So that is what is called as a multiple R. And this 0.8 indicates a high correlation between the actual and predicted values. You have something called as the R square, and then you have something called as the adjusted R square. So what is the difference between this R square and adjusted R square? I'll just put a small note over here. So you keep adding independent variables, right? The R square will increase by default, okay? But adjusted R square will increase only if the newly added variables are significant. Okay, so what does this mean? So let me come back to this data here. So all these parameters from B to H are my independent variables, okay? And for this given set of independent variables, we have a R square value of, let's say, 58%. Adjusted R square value of 58%, okay? And what was the R square value that we had here? 65%, okay? Now, what did I tell you just a while back? I told you that the remaining percentage of, apart from the 65% or the 58%, are made up of parameters that are outside of our data. So for example, the, let's say diameter, material, so all these parameters, okay? Now let's say I build one more regression model by including this diameter column, okay? Now it is possible that this R square goes from 65% to 70%. It could be possible, okay? But when I add this additional diameter column, the 58% need not necessarily go up to, let's say 60% or 65%. It need not necessarily, because there is something called as a statistical significance. So again, a couple of weeks back, we discussed this statistical significance concept, saying if the average is higher, is it just because of a random chance outcome, or is that outcome statistically significant? Okay, so that is what this accounts for. This adjusted R square, it will increase only if the independent variable actually affects the dependent variable, or if the independent variable is statistically significant. Okay, so what do we mean by the statistical significance? I'll just show you over here. So even in our hypothesis testing discussion, we had this variable called as the p-value, right? We had this parameter. So for each of the columns that you have in your data, or for each of the independent variables that you have in your data, after you do the regression, you will get this p-value, okay? And this p-value, how do you read it? You read it in the same way as you do for the hypothesis testing. So if this p-value is less than 0.05, then it means that that particular parameter is statistically significant. If it is greater than or equal to 0.05, then you just discount that variable or say that that variable does not have an impact on the target variable. Okay. So for example, you take, so under column C from rows 20 to 28, you can see each of the columns that you had in your data. So whatever you had here, capacity, weight, ER, unit volume, scroll, North America. So that is what you will have over here. And in addition to these columns, you will have something called as the intercept. Now what this intercept is nothing but this C value that we have. So this is the same equation that you're seeing. It is just that it is slightly adjusted a bit. So it will be like M1 X1 plus M2 X2 plus M3 X3. So this is how this equation looks like, whatever we got in our Excel. So let's say this capacity is X1. So we are basing, this is the set of X coordinates, right? So let's say this capacity is X1 and weight could be X2, ER could be X3, unit volume could be X4. So the equation will be like M1 into capacity, that is X1, and M2 into weight, M3 into ER, M4 into unit volume, like that. Okay. And that M value is basically what you have under coefficients. So we are saying slope M. So the actual equation will be something like this. So our original equation is y is equal to mx plus c, right? The actual equation is, what is the value of y? Y is nothing but price of compressor. So I will say price is equal to, instead of mx, we will have m1 x1 plus m2 x2 plus m3 x3. So m1 is nothing but this 0.01. So I will say 0.01 into capacity. Okay. Here. Plus m2 is this minus 0.98. Minus 0.98 into weight. Plus M3 is this ER 0.89, 0.89 into ER. So like that you have for the remaining variables as well. So minus 0.76 into volume, 2.33 into scroll, 0.4. So 2.33 into scroll is basically, if your compressor is a scroll compressor, you say 2.33 into 1. If your compressor is a reciprocating compressor, you say 2.33 into 0. And if you're purchasing the compressor from Latin America, then it will be 5.98 into 1. Or if you're purchasing the compressor from North America, you say 0.47 into 1. And so if this becomes 1, then this will become 0. If this becomes 1, this North America will become 0. So like that, you substitute these values in this formula that you have here, and you will be able to calculate the price of the given compressor. Now let me just come back here once more. So you can see that some of the variables I have marked in red. Okay, so ideally this should also be in red, because yeah. So whatever I have marked in red, you can just observe the p values for those variables. So here it's 0.52, here it's 0.65, here it's 0.38. Sorry. Here it's 0.1, here is 0.68. So all of the p values that I have marked in red are greater than 0.05. Okay, which means these variables or these independent predictor variables are not statistically significant, or you can say that these independent variables do not have an impact on the price of the compressor. In other words, the price of the compressor as per this equation that we have here does not depend on the capacity or the weight or the energy efficiency rating, but it does depend on the unit volume that you purchase and the and if you are procuring it from Latin America. Okay, so what does this mean? So you just see the value of the coefficient over here, it has a minus sign. Okay, so initially we said that the slope of the line, right, is the unit change in the value of y for a unit change in the value of x. Okay, so in these terms of the unit volume, it translates to something like this. So if the unit volume increases by 1, the price of the compressor reduces by minus 7.68 into 10 power minus $6. So that's what it means basically. So typically, if you see in any industry, if you purchase something in bulk, they will give you a discount. Okay, the same thing happens here. So when you purchase more units, or when you purchase a higher volume of units, then you get a discount on the price that you get for the each part or each compressor. So the discount is the reduction in the price, and that is what this negative slope indicates, minus 7.68 into 10 power minus 6. Similarly, for Latin America, it says 5.98, but note that here it is a positive sign. So what does this positive sign indicate? When you purchase the compressor from Latin America, the cost is $5.98 more. So that is what this Latin America coefficient or the Latin America slope indicates. Okay, and these two are the only significant variables that we have from our entire set of variables, because for the remaining variables, the p-value is greater than 0.05. Okay, and you also have significance f over here, which indicates whether this entire regression model that you have here is statistically significant. Okay, so here also the same rule applies. If this value is greater than 0.05, then it basically means that whatever you have done, you will get some equation like this, but in reality, these parameters don't have an impact on the price. So that is what it will indicate if this value is greater than 0.05. But here that is not the case. So this means that whatever regression that we have done is statistically significant. But out of this equation, only the unit volume and the Latin America variables are the important variables, or those are the variables which are actually having an impact on the price. Okay, and you also have something called as the residual output, which is nothing but for each observation that you have, or for each row of the data that you have. So for example, here you have until 45, right? This 45 is nothing but how many rows that we have over here. You can see that count is 45 rows in the data. For each of those rows, what is the predicted price per unit? So here you have the actual price, which is what you have in column I. So 34.49, 39.48. That is what you have as the actual price. And here you have the predicted price, 31.83, 36.71. So the actual minus the predicted is called, what is given here under the residuals. So you can just see how much your model is off for each observation. So what is the deviation of your model from the actual prices? So yeah, that is how you do a linear regression using Microsoft Excel. Any questions?
Yep.
So here, if you see, there are like so many conditions irrespective of the slope. Then you have to consider p-value, all those. So if you use in real case, like how to get familiar with these type of methods and all those.
How to get familiar as in?
Like how to remember these conditions are like.
Okay, see, interesting question. What I can say right now is I don't think there is an alternate to remembering these conditions. See, you don't have to worry too much about it. That's what I would say, because all you have to remember is if this p-value is less than 0.05 or greater than or equal to 0.05. Okay, that is all you need to remember. And just note that your variable you should consider as an important variable or a significant variable only if it is less than 0.05. So universally, any statistical technique that you apply in any domain, any industry, there is no alternative but for you to remember that rule. So that is what they say, right? It's a rule of thumb or something like that. So like that, we definitely have to remember that small rule. So that 0.05. I am not aware of any software that directly gives you only the significant variables or anything, but all software, what they do is they give you the p-values against each of these variables and then allow you to take a call on whether that variable is significant or not. Okay, so why do they do that? Because you have run, so this is a very, very simple case that I told you, right? We have a set of, let's say, some 6 or 7 variables over here, and you can just read the variables and okay, I'm saying these are the only 2 important variables, and I will just take these 2 in my equation. Okay, but there are certain instances where there could be a huge amount of data and very large number of variables. So in those cases, what people typically do is they look at this p-value against each of the variables, and they perform multiple iterations by taking out the variables which have this high p-value. Okay, and in each iteration they see how much the accuracy improves. Okay, and again, most of the time the p-value we consider as a 0.05 is what we consider as a threshold, but some people might even be willing to go up to 0.1. Okay, so in order for users to take a more informed decision on how to include or exclude these variables, all the statistical software, what they do is they just give these p-values and just allow you to take a call on how best to proceed further. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Right. See, this judging what is the best model or what is the good level of accuracy, so that is something that you get by experience.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, no problem. See, one more point here is, so in today's session, I have not gone too much into the detail and the statistical theory behind it, but like I said, there are a lot of videos available in YouTube and a lot of content available in online, which you can look at to know more about this, about the concepts behind this linear regression subject. Okay, any other questions?
I think all good from my side.
Okay,